Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then welcome. My name is Kyeisha Lawrence and I'm a blogger at stylebykai.com. The topic of today's video is all about how I've gotten a 4.0 GPA in college and how I've had straight A's in college so far. So I'm just gonna start with my disclaimer and why I felt a little hesitant about putting out a video with like this kind of title for a couple of reasons. One, I am very much aware of the competitive nature of college and being pre-med. And it's not something that I like to feed into. I know that it's very hard not to judge yourself based on your grades, and my platform is all about uplifting other students, and I never want to make anyone feel down or like compare themselves to me or to other people. And so this video is about study tips. It is about tips that's helped me get straight A's and a 4.0 GPA, but you're not your GPA. And really what these tips are about is doing your best, which is the absolute importance. All right, so before we hop into some of the tips, I think it's good, if you don't know who I am, to just say who am I. So as mentioned, my name is Kyeisha Lawrence. I am going to be a rising senior at the University of Maryland, College Park. At the university, I am in their honors college, and there I'm in the Gemstone Honors Program, which is a 4-year research program. As far as my major, I'm studying cellular biology and genetics, and I have a French minor, and I'm on the pre-med track. As far as mentioned in the title, I've gotten a 4.0 GPA in college. As far as semesters, I've gotten a 4.0 for 3 semesters, and then my other semesters have been around like a 3.9. So my overall GPA is very close to a 4.0. And that's crazy for me to say. It sounds insane, like it's crazy, and I never share this stuff to brag in any way. It's very important for me to want to share these things because my whole journey, I've started vlogging since 2015, and with that I've shared my college journey, and as I learn things I share them. And I also think it's important, especially as a Black woman in STEM, to encourage other people to know that you can do it, and you can believe in yourself and do way more than you ever thought you could. So that's a little intro about me. I'm talking really fast. I'm very excited, but I'm gonna slow down, collect myself. I have my notes right here that I wrote out this morning, and so we're gonna hop into it. So today we're gonna be covering 10 of my top tips for getting a 4.0, straight A's, or just being academically successful in college. So let's go ahead and hop into tip 1. So my very first tip is to find out what study practices work best for you early on. So this goes for my students who are starting college, first-year students, as well as in the start of each semester. Honestly, I see studying as the same as working out. The more that you work out and you're building up those muscles, it gets easier in the long run. But at the very beginning, it's very difficult, especially transitioning from high school and kind of have to throw out everything you've done before and learn how to study all over again. So my tip is, although yes, there's a lot of stuff going on when you are a first-year student, and you shouldn't put too much pressure on yourself because you're adjusting, at the same time, take that adjustment period to find out what works best for you. Don't push it off and think that, oh, over time, as I keep going into these classes, I'll magically learn how to study. So some tips for finding out what are the study techniques that might be best for you. My first advice is just ask other people. Obviously not everyone might be the most open at sharing, which I think is very strange. But first of all, I'm very open at sharing, as you know. I have a lot of vlogs on my platform already, but along with that, my email and my DMs are always open, so you can go in the description box below. But yeah, I would just ask other people, if you know like upperclassmen who have taken the course, and ask how did they study. I also did a lot of research online. If you just look up like psychology of studying, for example, or research into studying, best studying techniques, and kind of reading up on different blogs, even watch a YouTube video. I think it's crucial skills that's very important to learn. Step 1, doing your research, asking people, and then step 2, start trying them out. And this is where I have the early on part of this tip, is do this at the beginning. Start at the beginning of your college experience, but then also every class you take is different. So the beginning of the semester, I see it as a fresh slate. Even going into my senior year, I do know how I study and what works for me, but at the same time, I have to think, okay, for example, this fall, I'm taking physics for the first time. I've never taken physics before. I've never taken it in high school. It's a whole new subject. And so I will be going back to the research board and asking my friends. I've already asked them, you know, oh, what study techniques did you use? What resources are are out there, just asking those questions and just building up your toolkit about how you're gonna approach these classes. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the other tips, and I'm gonna dive in a little bit deeper on what exact study tips I suggest. My tip number 2 is to go to lecture and go to discussion. Now I know. I know that there are classes and there are professors where you feel like your time is more efficient just teaching yourself at this point. Or sometimes, it's an early class, you want to sleep in. What I see happen a lot too, and what has happened to me before as well, is you start focusing on one class so much. So you skip math to study for biology, but then after skipping math for so long, now you're skipping biology to catch up on math. And it's just like a snowball effect that starts happening. Just go to lecture. Just go to lecture. And I think lecture is really important for some key reasons. One, this has to go with some of my tips I'm going to explain a little bit later, but it's about spacing out material and practicing it over time. When you go to lecture, it is your first time to hear the material. You're just trying to soak it in. You can ask some clarification questions, start taking your first draft of notes, but it's really that baseline level. You're not going to understand everything that's going on in lecture, but that's the first time that your brain is hearing the information, and the neurons are synapsing on each other and making those connections for the first time. Another reason that I really like lecture is it's that block of time that I know for sure I'm going to see the material for that course. That is really helpful when you're having multiple courses. I've done high credit loads, at least that's what we call them at University of Maryland, where I've taken 19 and 20 credits, so it's like 7 to 8 courses. And so it's very important to time manage, which I will talk about a little bit later as well. For those reasons, lecture is really important to go to. As far as discussion is really crucial for me for my practice-based classes specifically. So I'm talking about math, and I'm talking about chemistry, physics, kind of like practice-based courses that you're taking. And that's because practice is so key to doing well in those types of courses. When you go to discussion, your TA has prepared discussion questions for you, and it was a great way to practice that material. And again, I knew I had that block of time where I was going to practice it. Also, when I went to discussion, I can meet like-minded students in the class and form study groups. There's a lot of great benefits for going to lecture and discussion. I highly suggest it. I think it's a great tip for trying to get straight A's. So my third tip is constant studying and avoiding cramming. I kind of like to humble brag a bit that I've never ever pulled an all-nighter. And I think that's really important. Obviously, again, this is something that works for me. I'm more of a morning person and daytime person than a nighttime person anyway. But also, I've just seen a lot of students fall into these situations where you're up all night the day before your exam trying to learn things, and it's not gonna work. It's like proven that, that's just not the right way to study, and people will tell you don't cram for a reason. And so I really think that something that helped me actually ace my exams is constant studying. But how I do this is I do block off time that I'm going to be reviewing, and every weekend I'm basically studying. I'm always studying because there's always something to be studying. Even if your exam is 3 weeks away, there's something to be studying. And of course, take breaks and stuff. I'm not saying constant studying, constant reviewing, but what I mean is really do not wait until the week of your exam or even a couple of days before your exam is not enough time. My go-to rule of thumb is 2 weeks before that exam, I'm already starting to really roll it in. The 2-week date, I really want to start reviewing, making sure that I'm starting to put some more practice problems in there, go to office hours, because honestly, weeks go by so fast. And by the week of the exam, I'm on review mode, I'm on practice exam mode, and I'm not trying to learn any new material. And so it's really key to kind of keep up with that and to keep ahead. You don't want to be studying for your exam when there's 3-4 chapters worth of material that you've only learned in lecture and you never really reviewed it. So even when I'm having, maybe my lunch, I might put on a YouTube video covering what I learned earlier in the lecture. And that is something that I saw in the research as well, that professionals, I guess, also recommend, is that we learn best when you space stuff out. And so take advantage of those facts and space it out, keep learning it. And also it helps you to not be as overwhelmed when it's time to study, because you've been studying all along. So tip number 4, that's 3. So tip number 4 is about studying with others as well as trying to teach the material to other people. So please do not feel like you're on this college journey alone. Collaboration is really key, and I think there's nothing worse than, how do I say this? Like just students who feel like it's them versus everyone else in the classroom. I think that just sets up for like a non-learning environment. And it's always been really important for me to know that no, these people are not my competitors, they're my peers, and we should all be working together. And so I've used study groups since my first semester. It's how I met one of my closest friends now, and they're just a great way to be able to study the material. Also, a really good tip to learning is by teaching others, trying to explain it in your own words. There have been countless times where I was like, oh yeah, I got this one, I can explain it, guys. And I go to explain it and I'm like, oh, I don't actually understand this the way that I thought, because when I'm trying to recall the information, explain it in my own words, I'm getting caught up. Teaching is actually a really great way to study the material because, again, you have to put it in your own words, make connections, maybe try to apply it to other examples, and it's just a really great way to learn. So my tip number 5 is all about active studying. And this is one of my favorite tips. I feel like I say it all the time, like on my blog and on my Instagram, but I want to put it in this video once again and just really stress this. What does active studying mean? Well, active studying means that you're actively trying to recall information or apply information when you are studying. And so passive studying will look like, you know, reviewing notes, even rewriting notes can be passive depending on how you're doing it. Reading chapters, even watching YouTube videos, it's all passive. Someone else is saying the information and you're just listening to it. It's all passive because you're not studying that actual recall that you're gonna have to do on the exam. Active studying is super key to practice doing that. So a couple ways that I do active studying, one is with my note-taking technique. And so sometimes when rewriting notes, I'll actually write them as questions and answers. And so I'll maybe like look at my notes, write up the question, and then, you know, think about what the answer is based on the notes. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically instead of just rewriting notes the same way that they're written before, I'm transforming them into a different format that's more so questions and thinking about recalling and answering that question. Another great way for active learning is using flashcards such as actual index cards, or you can use Quizlet or Anki. Just a quick note about Anki here. I have not really used this until my summer course, so just a couple months ago. But I do want to mention it because I've started using it in my summer course as well as MCAT studying, and it is really great because you have daily practice, so it's spaced out like repetition, and it's basically an algorithm to help you like really memorize things. So definitely check it out. I'll put a link down below. For my STEM majors, make your flashcards. For your functional groups, your PKAs, for Orgo, and I would just have those in my purse and in between classes, just working on them, you know, just trying to actively recall that information. And I think that active studying is not just about memorization, but this is also a good time to try to apply information. And so with active studying, I like to incorporate a lot of practice problems. Like if I have access to the textbook, I'll look at like chapter practice problems, or even just Googling problems and giving them a shot, even if they aren't completely aligned with what we're learning in class. A lot of times it's a good chance for me to try to apply what I'm learning to maybe a question that my teacher didn't go over in our course. And my last tip about active studying is something I've been doing since my very first semester, and it's one of my biggest tips. It's about making your own practice exams. So one reason I really like to do this is because, one, the practice of making my exams is really great studying. I end up going through all of my notes, basically designing questions around the note. You know, it says, you know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and I'll go and write or type what is the powerhouse of the cell, and then I'll move on to my next note, and then I end up with this sometimes like 10-page document of just like different questions based on the notes. But I really like to start out my study sessions actually with these practice exams, and I do them closed book, and I just go through as quickly as I can, recalling the information, going through it, and then for things I don't remember, I know that, oh shoot, like this is something, circle, highlight, that I really need to go over. Another reason why I like practice exams is because oftentimes in your courses, your teachers will give you past exams to practice off of. And while I did those too, I still like to make my own exams because, like I said, I go through my notes and I put a question for every dang thing that we covered. Versus the exam that your professor gives you is only some questions, and most likely they're not going to reuse those exact questions. So those exams are really great for knowing how do they ask questions, you know, what is the length of the exam. It's good practice, but don't only study based on exams they give you, because they're most likely not going to ask those exact same things. And I've even done these for courses like organic chemistry and general chemistry. For like organic chemistry, I would like go through my notes and pull out like the reactions that we learned, and then I'll just do like this whole blank list of just like reaction and like reactant, and then I'll practice writing out all the products. Or I'll just like throw up a mechanism on like the whiteboard or in my iPad and practice going through the mechanism. So again, just that practice, that constant practice is so important. But on that note, I am posting a blog alongside this video, and so if you missed anything or you want to know a little bit more details, check out my blog on stylebykai.com. Link will be in the description box. You can read the tips that I'm mentioning, and I'll put any links to past blogs, to resources, to YouTube videos, anything like that as well in the blog, so definitely check it out. So tip number 7 is all about giving all of your courses love and attention. So I think that it's very easy to focus on the harder classes because they're more challenging, you're like more anxious about them, and then other classes, it might just be like, oh yeah, I understand this material, I understand this material, I'm just gonna study when the test comes around. I'll honestly say the most difficult part about these classes is not even the material itself, but it's the pace of the material that you need to learn it, as well as learning it alongside learning, you know, 6 to 7, 8 other courses. And so how I would do this is maybe for a class that I'm not like feeling that urge that I need to study for it as much, maybe it's a bit of an easier class, maybe it's a gen ed or something, I might just give myself a day of the week, like let's say Tuesdays. I'm like, you know what, Tuesdays are my gen ed days. I'm gonna just review that material weekly and just make sure that I'm staying on top of it, as well as with my other courses. So tip number 8 is all about study plans and scheduling, and I could probably do a whole other video on this topic, so if you want to see that, definitely comment below. I do have a blog that I published in 2019, I believe, all about study plans and scheduling, so I'll link that below if you want more tips right now. But as far as this video, the major tip that I wanted to share is making sure that you're putting some time into making those study plans. I found it really helped me to have that structure, and it helped me to kind of achieve a lot of the tips I've already talked about. And so study plans can take different formats. You can use like a printout version, you can write it on a piece of paper, you can use Google Calendar, any other digital planner. I've done like some different things. I use Google Calendar daily, and so I sometimes will block out my times there. But I also use this daily study plan that I have uploaded on my blog. That's just a template of you to like put in exactly what you want to do for that day. I'll just put on the screen some looks at my Google Calendar and how I kind of schedule out that. Again, I could do a whole video diving more in depth into scheduling. I do have some videos up already about me doing my semester planning, so definitely check that video out, especially as we're about to go into a new semester, because I talk a lot about planning and prepping for the semester before it starts. So tip number 9 that I want to talk about is all about staying focused while studying, or really just having like productive study habits. So no offense to anyone out there, I think we've all had times where we did this. Just because you're in the library does not mean that you're studying, you know what I'm talking about. Just because the book is open in front of you doesn't mean that you're taking it in, you know, it's just we've got to actually study, guys. This tip is all about how to handle those like really long study days, those 12-hour plus 15-hour left the house at 7 a.m. come back at 11 p.m. study days. So here are some key things I do to not feel super burnt out during those long study days. First tip for not feeling burnt out on really long study days and being able to focus is to find a good study space that works for you. I also think it's good to kind of switch it up, and so what I would do is usually study at one spot in like the morning, go get lunch, and then I'll move to another spot. So that kind of helps to break up the day so I don't feel like I was literally in the same seat for 12 hours. So tip number 2 for studying for long hours is just packing your snacks, having a good study playlist. A lot of times what I'll do to kind of like get me up and out the house to go study is get myself a nice cup of coffee because I really love coffee. So just kind of things like that where you're kind of like not tricking yourself, but like setting the mood, like, oh yeah, this is about to be awesome, this is about to be a great productive day, like just really like pumping you up to go and study, because attitude is everything. Step 3 is planning something fun to do when you're done studying. So oftentimes, like maybe it's an episode of like Grey's Anatomy or something, that I'm like, okay, when I'm done, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna have a nice shower, I'm gonna make some tea, and I'm gonna like chill and watch Netflix. And so something like that where I'm like, okay, just keep pushing through, and then you're gonna have this nice like reward at the end. Along with keeping yourself motivated, that's step 4, which is keeping your goals in mind. When I'm studying for so long, I know that I'm doing this for a reason. And I'm like, look, I know that if I put this work in, based on like other classes and how I've been doing, I know like this is the amount of work I need to put in to do well in this course. I know like I can do this, and like that kind of keeps me motivated because I know that there's going to be that end product, which is doing well in the class, doing well in the course, but also ultimately really learning the material and appreciating the material as well. Make sure that you're taking breaks when needed. There are different techniques that you can use that I've tried out different ones as well. There's the Pomodoro technique. Sorry, I always forget what the name of it is. But it's basically like 25 minutes of studying and then 5-minute breaks, and you keep going, and then you get a 15-minute break. So that's great because you can literally be studying for 3 hours, I swear, and it doesn't feel like that. Another technique I've used too is 50 minutes of studying and then 10 minutes break. That might be helpful when you're doing, let's say a practice exam is 50 minutes. 10-minute break and continue. So last quick tip for long study days is make sure you're switching up your medium of studying. So, you know, you might switch from like reading the textbook to then go over your flashcards and then watch some YouTube videos, stuff like that, again, to just kind of keep the day, you know, looking a little bit different. I think that really helps you build up the endurance to be studying for hours and hours on end. All right, so we've reached the final tip that I wanted to leave you guys with today. And this tip is more so about the mindset. And I just wanted to kind of talk about being not too hard on yourself, but also being confident in yourself. So one reason I've been pretty open about my grades and putting out blogs and videos on topics like these is because I think it's important to show that we can achieve these things. Because if someone would have told me, you know, back in high school that I would have had straight A's in college or achieved certain things that I did, I really wouldn't believe them. And I actually suffer with a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of self-doubt, just like feeling like I need to prove myself, feeling like I'm not doing enough. I try to come out of those struggles and to share these tips and just kind of share my journey in order to help inspire and empower other students as well. And so I think the first thing and why I wanted to leave this tip for last, the last thing to leave you all with, is making sure that you're putting yourself, your well-being and all of that first, because if that's not taken care of first, then the grades and extracurriculars and like all this other stuff, like it's not even gonna matter. It's not gonna be to the potential that you could be if you do put yourself first and really take care of yourself. So just make sure that you are proud of yourself and what you are achieving when you're doing your best. No one is perfect, so do not strive for perfection. Only strive to be the best that you can be. I also want to say to be sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who are also supporting you, who are also uplifting you, similar mindset of people who want to succeed and want to see you succeed, who want to help you. So yeah, that's basically the final tip that I just wanted to leave you all with. Again, the ways that we feel about ourselves is going to help us to be successful and to achieve those dreams that we have for ourselves. And again, I just want to say, believe in yourself because you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And it's all about being the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So that basically wraps up today's video, talking about 10 tips that I wanted to share about how I've gotten a 4.0 GPA in college. So I hope that these tips were super helpful. If you are liking the content, tips that I share, if you like reading about college, lifestyle, and fashion, be sure to follow me on stylebykai.com. Something that I've been doing on my blog for 2 years now is sharing Style by Kai resources. These are my database of free resources that I put out there and share for free. So I have Orgo 1 notes, Orgo 2 notes, cell biology notes, genetics, daily study plan, a college study template for Trello, financial budgeting for college, just a bunch of different things that I found helpful, and so I wanted to share with you. So definitely go check it out. All you have to do is sign up for site membership, which is absolutely free. It subscribes you to the blog, and that's it. So definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'm excited to see you in my next video.